Welcome to The Sanctuary. We're here to talk about the messy reality of writing, reading, and finding stories that have the power to transform us. I'm Guinevere Atlas. I'm a Gen Z neurodivergent author, and I am currently deep in the trenches of my MFA thesis novel. Lately, that manuscript has been putting up a massive fight. Looking at this brick-paved square and these looming cathedrals, you get a sense of the heavy, institutional weight of late 15th century Bologna. That is exactly where my Gothic philosophical horror novel, Before Gloria Regali, takes place. My protagonist, Rosette, uncovers a terrifying reality beneath the city. She discovers a geothermal engine that literally consumes high-frequency souls, the neurodivergent, the brilliant, the witches, to power a protective shield for the elite. I had the darkness mapped out, but I was struggling to find the mechanics of a hope that actually feels permanent, a way to reach the end of the ruin without losing the soul of the story. Which brings me to a Tuesday evening. It was 7 p.m., my brain was completely depleted, my dopamine was on the floor, and I was staring at a wall refusing to sleep. So I opened TikTok. Scrolling is my default coping mechanism when I'm too exhausted to create but too wired to rest. I treat it like passive background noise. But sometimes the algorithm locks onto a pattern. I slipped into a hyper-focused spiral where my entire For You page was suddenly screaming about one book. Hitting a wall of total exhaustion feels terrible in the moment. Yet sitting in that mental depletion ended up being the exact state I needed to let an outside solution slip through my defenses. The book was Grimm by DJ Krimmer and Joe Arden. It's a romantasy about a reluctant Grim Reaper and a radiant girl living on borrowed time. Everyone in the comments insisted it had to be experienced in audio first. My inner teen girly, the one raised on Wattpad and brooding supernatural love interests, took the wheel, and I downloaded it immediately. Looking at this comparison, you can see why this works so well for a tired brain. When a printed page demands too much cognitive energy, an audiobook shifts the sensory load. You get to absorb the narrative through fluid sound waves, letting the narrator do the heavy lifting. Passive listening refilled my creative well. I could study the emotional resonance, track the pacing of the story, without the friction of reading text. Stepping away from the visual strain of a page and letting audio take over gave my stalled creative identity exactly what it needed to reactivate. The story centers on Rue Chamberlain. She died briefly, came back, and now has 9 days left to live. She is stubborn, reckless, and determined to burn brightly with the time she has left. She is supervised by Cain Devereaux. He's a centuries-old Grim Reaper who has crossed over thousands of souls without feeling a thing. He is supposed to be cold and entirely detached. But Rue touches his soul. The rigid rules governing his existence fracture, and this isolated entity becomes fiercely devoted to keeping her safe. There is a moment where Cain tells her, "I am with you, brave girl. Love knows not time and space." He confesses a love that spans entirely different planes of existence. This shift moves the story beyond simple survival. It carves out a reality where cosmic devotion thrives right inside the heaviest shadow of mortality. In publishing, we use comp titles, the benchmarks that tell readers exactly where a new book sits on the shelf. The most effective comparisons often bypassed plot beats or historical settings entirely, connecting instead through a shared internal pulse. Before Gloria Regali isn't a romantasy, but shares the same raw energy as Grimm, deep yearning, fierce devotion, and a cosmic love cutting through immense darkness. Watching that connection unfold gave me the permission I needed. It allowed me to weave that same bold, defiant love into a world defined by institutional horror. When you are stuck trying to fix a structural flaw in your own genre, the clearest answer is often hiding in a completely different section of the bookstore. If your creative routine involves doom scrolling or unexpected hyperfixations or reading romance late at night, that is valid. Joy is a legitimate part of the craft. I write to explore the cost of preservation and the strength of chosen family. If my thesis can eventually ache, heal, and become a comfort book for someone else, that is the legacy I want to leave. Thank you for spending time in the sanctuary today. This space is all about finding the stories that anchor us when things get heavy. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below with your current hyper-focus read, or tell me about an audiobook that saved your routine. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next chapter.